One good thing that can come out of this event is for us as a community to care about each other more, respect each other more, and become the most close-knit community in the entire United States of America.
What you have now with these murders is the fuse that has now been lit.
We know we do not have the fact in this case.
This thing happened, we're gonna have to accept it, and then hopefully it won't happen again. You know, not only to us, to anybody. That we don't like to see it again, we don't want to hear it again, and then we don't even want to talk about it again. You know, that's how much it hurt us.
Glenda Cleveland remembers the day Monarch died, remembers the police assurances that everything was okay.
Did you start to doubt yourself?
I must admit I did. I did.
But do you feel they let that boy down that night?
Yes, they did. Yes. Yes, he was definitely let down. He was let down as low as he could get, and that was to his grave. He can't get much lower than that.
During that long phone conversation you heard between Mrs. Cleveland and police, not once did they ask her name, not once did they ask where she lived. That was the end of it, until now. And now you can believe there are a lot of police investigators talking to Glenda Cleveland. We're live in Milwaukee. I'm Lester Holt, Channel 2 News.
Thanks, Lester. We have information tonight that may put the police actions in perspective. It regards the size of the Laotian boy whom the police said looked like an adult. 14-year-old Monarch was only 5 feet 3 inches tall. He weighed just 110 pounds.
Have a party down from a battery. Police have been notified. 2500 West State Street, 2500 West State.
Paramedics spent just 2 minutes and 59 seconds there. They gave the youth a blanket and talked with police before radioing back.
Engine 32 or 10/8/10/19 1076.
That's code for false alarm. Jeffrey Dahmer outsmarting authorities as he'd done time and again.
Meanwhile, about 20 residents of the building where Dahmer allegedly dismembered 11 victims are spending another night at an undisclosed Milwaukee hotel. The horror of what Dahmer says he did in his apartment has proven too much to handle for many of them. Some say they've been harassed by strangers for not notifying police about the stench or the noise from Dahmer's apartment.
I haven't been sleeping and I haven't been eating, and my life has been like a nightmare.
An anonymous donor is paying the hotel bill for the residents until they can find a permanent place to live.
Was sacrificed because Mr. Dahmer was on the loose.
I want justice. To take life like that, I want to see justice done.
Catherine's son Oliver Lacey had just moved to Milwaukee from the Chicago area a few months ago, ready to start a new life with his fiancée and his baby. But last month, the track star with big dreams died in Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment, another victim of Milwaukee's serial killer.
Catherine Lacey told me shortly after the courtroom hearing ended today that if she could ask Jeffrey Dahmer one thing, it would be how he was able to lure Oliver to his apartment, how he was able to win her son's trust.
What was going through Dahmer's mind while he was allegedly committing those grisly murders? His probation report may hold the key.
Dahmer was on probation for sexually assaulting a 13-year-old boy. He visited caseworker Donna Chester regularly from April 1990 to just 2 weeks ago. Her notes show a chilling side to the man accused of 17 mutilation murders.
April 12, 1990. Dahmer tells his probation officer that he has no friends and has isolated himself from society and that he drinks alone. The probation officer tells him to first work on alcohol issues and then we will begin to discuss sexual tendencies. 2 weeks later, Chester calls Dahmer's father, Lionel, who admits his son had been abused by a neighbor boy at the age of 8 and says that may be the reason why his son has a problem with sexuality issues.
But by this time, by his own admission, Jeffrey Dahmer has killed 3 men. In June 1978, hitchhiker Stephen Hicks in Ohio. In 1988, Richard Guerrero in Milwaukee. And in March 1989, Anthony Sears in Milwaukee.
May 29, 1990, his probation officer writes that Dahmer usually has a neat appearance but was unkempt and unshaven today and that he says he was ripped off at his apartment, took his watch, $300, all his clothes.
Meantime, Dahmer says he has killed again, this time a Rockford man, 33-year-old Ricky Beeks. And within days, Dahmer says he strikes out again. In Milwaukee, 28-year-old Edward Smith, now reported missing.
Shortly after that, Dahmer makes a stunning personal admission. He comes to the realization that he prefers male partners, but tells Chester that he feels guilty about this. He feels depressed all the time and talked about suicide. Chester writes she will monitor him closely and will consider a home visit, but because Dahmer lives in a very bad area, a home visit will require another agent to go. The home visit never takes place.
Within 3 weeks, Dahmer says he finds another victim, Ernest Miller, a 22-year-old Chicagoan.
Just 8 days after his last alleged killing, he tells Chester he begins working a 12-hour shift to help him get caught up on his bills. Dahmer works at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory for $8.75 an hour. On September 24th, he wants to know from Chester how he's doing. She tells him okay, but that he was not trying to resolve his problems.
That same night, 23-year-old David Thomas of Milwaukee is missing, Dahmer's 7th alleged victim. And over the next 6 months, Dahmer says he kills 3 more times.
But by May 27, 1991, Dahmer tells Chester he had no major problems.
On this very night, Dahmer allegedly lures his youngest victim to his apartment. It turns out to be 14-year-old Conrad Synthesomphone, the brother of the boy he's on probation for sexually assaulting. Dahmer admits to Synthesophone's mutilation murder. By now, Dahmer's killings are more frequent. On June 30th, Dahmer uses Chicago's gay parade as a tool to talk 20-year-old Matt Turner to Milwaukee. He becomes Dahmer's 12th victim. Dahmer now begins to kill every 6 days. Jeremy Weinberger on July 6th, Oliver Lacey on July 12th.
Just 2 days later, he is fired from his job. On July 18th, he sees Chester in dirty clothes and unshaven. During the interview, he kept yawning as if he was having a problem staying awake.
The next night, Dahmer meets 15-year-old Joseph Bradehoff in Milwaukee, his last known victim. Donna, Chester's case reports were based on in-person and telephone interviews with Jeffrey Dahmer.
Well, today, Warner, we had a chance to look at the application for a search warrant of Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. A warrant that suggests authorities may have a lot to go on when it comes time to prosecute. In addition to photographs of victims reportedly recovered from Dahmer's apartment, court records show that videotapes, a personal computer, and a number of floppy disks were also found. Police sources say they are looking at the tapes to see if the contents may link Dahmer to the confessed murders or any others. So far, nothing incriminating has been found. The disks and the computer's internal hard drive have yet to be searched. Police want to know if Dahmer cataloged any information about his victims on the computer. Such work could be used to challenge any insanity defense.
Dahmer kept the heads of 11 of his victims in his apartment. He painted 3 of the skulls with a gray paint to look like models. Dahmer had sex with most of his victims either before or after drugging their drinks. But that wasn't true with 23-year-old David Thomas. Dahmer, according to newly released court documents, concluded that Thomas was not his type. Nonetheless, Dahmer says he murdered Thomas last fall, dismembered his body, but, quote, did not keep any of the body parts because the man wasn't his type. Even though Thomas's remains have not been found, Dahmer today was charged with his murder based on photographs identified by Thomas's family. The remains of 4 other of Dahmer's victims have not been found, and there may be charges ultimately in those cases as well.
It's believed that the medical examiner may have been looking for the remains of this man, whom we now know to be Dahmer's 16th victim. Stephen Toomey of Milwaukee, identified by Dahmer in a photo, but no remains found. They were possibly erased by the acid. Toomey had been living in this apartment house until September 1987, when his parents say they last heard from him. When Toomey missed several rent payments, the landlord told me he was evicted, or more precisely, his possessions were evicted, and according to this sheriff's record, sold at auction. Toomey hadn't been seen in months and was already dead at the hands of Jeffrey Dahmer.
But tonight it is very apparent that, like all the others, nobody ever tied Toomey's disappearance to Dahmer. Only when the veil was pulled off Dahmer's hideous secret 3 weeks ago did anybody here start making any connections. In Milwaukee, Chuck Gowdy, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Authorities in Bath, Ohio continued to dig today in the area around Dahmer's former home. This morning they discovered 50 additional human bones, more than in the previous 2 days of digging. Some of those bones believed to have come from the skull of Stephen Hicks, who authorities say was Dahmer's first victim. The teeth are missing, apparently because Dahmer's parents hired a handyman to clean up the property about 1 year after the killing.
That gentleman has informed us that when he did that, he did rake up a lot of bones. He did not appreciate what they may have been at that point in time.
What did he do with them?
Well, they, as he advised us, they were placed in bags, and the family took them to a dump site.
Dahmer's father and stepmother are confining themselves to their apartment, refusing to talk publicly about this case. Dahmer's relatives also say they've been receiving up to 15 calls an hour for information.